Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mike Elko, Texas A&M, working their way through fall camp. And I think if you're a Texas A&M fan that follows this program pretty dang closely, you were going into fall camp with, number one, some quiet optimism, but probably a list of questions that we wanted to see get answered from this football team rolling into 2025. And look, I get it's early on in fall camp. I would make the argument that we're starting to get some answers. For example, something we'll talk about, I had a concern about the depth in the middle of the defensive line. We know we have the talent. Do we have enough bodies to rotate at that position, especially when it comes to the SEC? I think you're starting to figure out that we're feeling decent about the depth and bodies that we have in the middle of the defensive line. Another question was, hey, are the wide receivers any better than they were last year? I think we've already figured out this answer, but everything we've been hearing coming out of fall camp is we got just a different caliber set of guys on the outside at the wide receiver position. But more importantly than that, these wide receivers that Texas A&M has going into 2025, I think better fit Marcel Reed as a quarterback, but also what Coach Colin Klein wants to do on the offensive side of the football. Going back to the conversation we've routinely had around Texas A&M is, look, this program's always had the talent. That's why there's been so much preseason buzz around this football team really for the last decade. The thing that makes it feel different in 2025 to me, I don't even know if this is the most talented Texas A&M team we have seen just on paper, but I think there's a little bit more of a clear vision of how this football team is going to look in 2025. I think there's an identity. I think the talent on this football team better fits what this program wants to do on both sides of the football. That matters. I mean, you can just throw a bunch of talent on the wall and hope it sticks. It's never really stuck for Texas A&M. There's been a little bit more of a methodical approach in terms of what kind of talent we want that fits what kind of football team we want to be. That's why Texas A&M to me feels a little bit different. Fired up to get into this one. We got some surprise standouts. We got some young talent standing out. Before we get into it, as always, to the Texas A&M fans, appreciate you guys. Many of y'all been rocking with the boys for a very long time. Y'all know how much fun I've had talking this program. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support y'all have shown. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. And number one, the real reason I'm a believer in Texas A&M, specifically on the offensive side of the football, is this offensive line's a weapon. I think we saw this Texas A&M offensive line in 2024 take a massive step. It was probably, let's just be quite frank about it, was probably a liability in 2023. Thought it was much improved in 2024. Now you return pretty much everybody. You trust the offensive line coach and Adam Cushing. Everything we've heard out of fall camp, this should be the engine of this Texas A&M offense. And more importantly than that, hey, what does Texas A&M want to do on offense? It ain't no secret. Mike Elko wants to run the football. This offensive line is not only deep, it's not only talented, it's not only experienced, it's also freaking massive. I mean, Trey Azun goes 320. Chase Basantis is the smallest offensive lineman in the starting five. He's 315. And I would argue he might be the most physically imposing offensive lineman on this football team. You got a position battle at center between Mark Nabu and Coley. Both are 330-pound dudes. Both, I think, will be quality football players, whoever wins that job. Armaz Reed Adams, probably the best blocking guard that you see in the country. He's 325. Demetrius Crownover's 336. Ruben Father is 332. I mean, I'm looking at this unit and say, all right, it's not only deep, it's not only experienced, it's not only talented. This is a big physical unit that should move people off the line of scrimmage, which is a nice segue into the second conversation we have to have, and that is, hey, Ruben Owens looks like he's back. Le'Veon Moss kind of burst onto the scene last year, asserted himself as one of the best running backs in the conference. I think assuming he comes back from the injury, we're going to see that in 2025. The big question for us is, what does it look like for Ruben Owens? Right? Le'Veon Moss is your bruiser. The guy that wants to attack the line of scrimmage, probably fits the identity the most with this program. But, hey, we want to be explosive. We want a guy that can hit the home run play. That's what we're hoping to see out of Ruben Owens. we saw him a little bit last year towards the tail end coming back from the injury. I think it was very clear he didn't have the pop that we knew he had coming out of high school. Everything we've been hearing is that Ruben Owens back to being that dynamic athlete that we knew he was as a freshman and coming out of high school. Behind an offensive line that I think Texas A&M really does have a mauling offensive line. You got a quarterback that can get involved in the run game as well. And I think you got two running backs between Le'Veon Moss and Ruben Owens, who not only are two very talented backs, they complement each other very, very well. Can Ruben Owens be that home run hitting running back that maybe Texas A&M did not have in 2024? Look, if we want to run the football as much as we want to run it, we got to figure out how to be explosive. Ruben Owens supplies that, or ideally supplies that for Texas A&M in 2025. That's really big news for Texas A&M fans. And now the last thing that I'll say here, the wide receivers are playmakers. The first thing that I will say is, what does Marcel Reed do best at quarterback? He's twitchy. He's twitchy and he gets the ball out really dang quick and he attacks the short and intermediate portions of the football field at an extremely high level. He is at his best when he's working between 0 and 15 yards. That's also what Coach Colin Klein wants. And you look at Coach Colin Klein and say back to when he was running some really good offenses at Kansas State, yards after the catch. We don't need to be a team that's taking a ton of shots down the field. We want to be a team that's getting the ball to our playmakers out on the perimeter in space. That's what Marcel Reed is fitted to do at quarterback. I think you got the playmakers to do it that you didn't have last year. The first thing that I will say is you got multiple guys who will make you hold your breath when they have the football in space. You didn't have a single one of those guys outside of Terry Bussey last year, and Terry Bussey was a freshman. Going into 2025 saying, all right, I mean, we know what Terry Bussey can be. I think he might be the best wide receiver on this football team, and that ain't no shot at KC Concepcion. We know KC Concepcion is one of the more dynamic players in the country with the football in his hands. Then the other thing is we got a ton of speed. I mean, this might be the fastest wide receiver room that you see in the country. I mean, Terry Bussey was a 10-7 guy coming out of high school. We know what KC Concepcion can do. Jerome Miles, true freshman, he was a 10-3 guy in the 100-meter dash. You look at Ashton Bethel-Roman, he was 10-4. Mario Craver's a 10-7 guy. I mean, there is so much playmaking ability and speed that even if this team does not push the ball down the field a ton, they're going to create a lot of explosive plays because it's easy to. Just get the football in KC Concepcion's hands in space or Terry Bussey's hands in space. They going to do the rest. You didn't have those guys last year. You have them this year. I mean, going back to what Texas A&M wants to be on offense, you have the talent that fits what they want to do. That's what excites me the most. And I will say this, I do think for Texas A&M's offense to reach their ceiling, you do want to see that deeper third presence. You want to see Marcel Reed take a step, pushing the ball down the field. We have guys that can take the top off of the defense. We just went through all the track times that these wide receivers have. We have guys that can win vertically. You want to see Marcel Reed be able to hit the deep ball when asked. It's not going to be a massive part of his game, but can you do it when you're called upon to do it is a big deal. I think he got a really interesting group of tight ends. You know, I think you have a really complete one with Theo. And then you got Nate Borkshire, Micah Riley, who are just glass-eating, run-blocking tight ends. And you got a guy in Amari Niblack who I think Texas A&M just threw a dart at. You know, we don't know if he's going to figure it out or not. But if he does, can be one of the more dynamic pass-catching tight ends that you see in the conference. I look at this and say, you got the skill sets that fit what you want to do. You have a clear identity. The vibes are high for this Texas A&M offense and what they can be in 2025. Now, going to the defensive side of football, to me, this is where the ceiling for Texas A&M comes in. Can we be a better defense than we were last year? Now, from a personnel standpoint, you have to address some real talent on the defensive line, but everywhere else, you know, you're just kind of running it back, if not upgraded at certain positions. The defensive line is the biggest story. Can we be really good up front? I was concerned about the depth. I think you got 4 guys that you can trust on the inside. Albert Regis, I know we can trust. Tyler Needham, I thought was one of the more impressive defensive linemen going back to the spring game. DJ Hicks is going into year 3. Dalen Evans was kind of that guy that we needed to hear, hey, he's ready to play. It sounds like that's the case. We got 4 guys. Potentially DJ Sanders at some point as a true freshman factoring into that rotation. The numbers are starting to look right. We got some elite pass rushers on the outside. We know Cassius Howe is that guy. Hey, Rylan Kennedy, can he be the guy we know he can be? How about Marco Jones? Marco Jones going to play. Like Marco Jones, a true freshman, and it's not easy to get into the 2 deep coming off the edge for Texas A&M. Marco Jones, I think, will be in the 2 deep, and I think he is a guy that certainly can provide some pass rushing juice. Then you look at the back end and say, all right, Tyreek Chappelle is coming out of injury. I think Texas A&M really likes him. I think there's a reason he came back to Texas A&M. Then Julian Humphrey sounds like he might be your starting cornerback opposite of Will Lee. I mean, that's an interesting battle between Julian Humphrey and Des Riggs. My personal opinion is both are NFL caliber guys. They're both really, really talented. Both were former top 100 nationally ranked kids. And we've seen both Julian Humphrey and Des Riggs play quality football. Both of them need to be more consistent. Whoever wins that job, I feel like we'll be a little bit more consistent in 2025. You're going to have to be good if you want to win out and be Texas A&M starting cornerback in 2025. The real thing for me here is continuity, like year 2 with a ton of returning production. I know we might not be as talented on the defensive line, and that's okay, but can we take a step as an overall defense? I don't think that's out of the question. I think you're hearing a lot of the right things for Texas A&M, and I think that's probably what excites you the most. Like this talent, it feels a little bit different than we've seen in years past. We feel like the talent fits what Texas A&M wants to do, and that's kind of what we're hearing coming out of fall camp as well. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.